Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're working on the Adieu problem from PSET 4 of CS50 Introduction to Python. By the way, if you haven't watched the video here, I suggest that you do so. It's very cute. It's a song that includes the lyrics Adieu, and we'll see what we have to do now. In The Sound of Music, there's a song sung largely in English, So Long Farewell, with these lyrics wherein adieu means goodbye in French. Adieu to you and you and you, I guess. Of course, the line isn't grammatically correct since it would typically be written with an Oxford comma as adieu, due, to you, you, and you. To be fair, you isn't even a word, it just rhymes with you. In a file called adieu.py, implement a program that prompts the user for names, one per line, until the user inputs Control D. This is end the file or the EOF error, right? We've already seen it before. In case you haven't seen it, you can go back to PSET 3 where this is what we largely discuss. Going back to the requirements, assume that the user will input at least one name. Then bid adieu to those names, separating two names with one end, three names with two commas and one end, and n names with n-1 commas and one end, as in the below. By the way, don't get scared by these ends here that remind you of math. It's nothing complicated, and we won't even have to write our own algorithm for this, because guess what? There's a package for it. But here's the example. Adieu to, I don't know how this name is pronounced. Lizo, I don't know, really. Adieu to Lizo and Friedrich, maybe? Adieu to Lizo, Friedrich, and Lizo. And we're using Oxford comma, and so on and so on. Now, could we do this using our own code? Yes, but there is a pre-made package. Here's a hint from CS50 from the CS50 team, which says that there's a package called Inflect, which we can use. I've opened this link, so let me just show you real quick. This is the package. It's installed with pip install Inflect. And then there's some examples. So actually, let's just take a look at this. So once we have this installed, we import Inflect. And then the first step is to call the engine method of Inflect. This is just the engine that sets up all of the following methods that we're going to use, right? We don't use the methods directly on Inflect, but we sort of instantiate it through this engine. And then we use the created engine, which we store in a variable, in order to call whatever methods we're interested in. And here there's like a method called plural verb, which takes the was verb. And I'm actually not too sure what this does, to be completely honest. Let's see, was count, pluralization, and word representation of numbers. Oh, there we go. So when we write count equals 243, what it does is it writes it out as a number. And this plural verb thing used was as were because the count is more than one, right? So when we have 2043, then this is going to be were, not was. All right, let's scroll down because this is clearly not what we're looking for, right? There's like plural noun, plural adjective, plural everything. I guess this is where the P comes from. Maybe it's like a pluralizer. I don't know. There's there's compare, ordinal, number two words. There's join. I feel like join could be useful to us because what's our goal? Our goal is to collect names and then join them into one string where we have commas before the end, and for the very last name we have, before the very last name we have comma and name. So maybe this will do the job, but we need to research more, right? So I'm just gonna hit Command F or Control F if you're in Windows and just search join. And well, maybe it'll initially be spawned here, and I'm just using the arrow to navigate to the next match, and here it is. So we have p.join apple, banana, carrot, and then look at what happens here. We got apple, comma, banana, comma, and carrot, which is perfect for our use case. All right, that sounds really, really good. So let's get back here. Is there anything else we haven't checked out? Here's just an example. First name is Lizo. At the second name, they basically click Control D, which is end the file. And that's why the result is due to Lizo, I don't know. And then you could enter a couple of names and then they would all be listed. All right, I feel like we have a good sense of what we need to do, so let's just move into the IDE. Before we even get started with the code itself, maybe let's just install the library and import it. So I'm going to say pip install inflect, like this. There we go. And I'm going to import it at the top of my file. Import inflect. All right. There we go. And another thing that we noticed while reading the examples was that we don't call any method on the library itself. We actually use the engine method in order to set up our engine. I won't really copy this. I don't really like single letter names because P is not super self-explanatory. So I'd rather call this inflector or formatter or whatever you prefer. And this equals inflect with dot engine, and we call this method, right? And from here, we'll call all of the other methods onto the inflector that we have created. All right, so far so good. What else do we need? We'll need a list that is going to store all of the names that user has inputted, right? Because if you remember from the description of the problem, the user could enter multiple names. So I'll create a list for that. Names equals an empty list. And from here, what are we gonna do? Well, I'm just gonna use a try except block, actually while true loop combined with a try except block in order to read names until the user presses Control D in order to end the inputs. So I'm going to have while true, and then inside of it a try except. So I'll fill in the try code in a little bit. Just hold on for a bit, and here we'll have except EOF error. All right, and now let's see, what are we gonna try doing first? We're going to try to read the user's input, and if it's valid, we're gonna append it to our names list. So I'm going to say new name equals input, name colon. I'm not explaining this in great detail because that's from the very first week of lectures, but in case there's something you don't understand, feel free to go back to the first tutorials. But anyway, we read the user's input, and now if it's valid, we're just gonna append it to our names list. So I'm gonna say names dot append new name, just like that. But in case there is an EOF error, which is not really like an error, it just means that the file ended. We're not gonna use it anymore. We're not gonna input anything else. In that case, we would like to print a message, and I'm gonna use a formatted message here. That's why I'm adding the F in front. Let's see what a message should look like. So message should look like adieu, adieu, to. And then we're going to use the library, the method that was called join from the inflector in order to output the names in the proper, sequence and the proper formatting. So let me begin with adieu, like this, to, and now I'm going to use curly braces. Why am I using them? Because this way I can actually call some methods, use variables, and so on. So I would like to take my engine or my inflector, and on it call the join method that we found earlier that we thought would be useful to us, right? We found it here in the examples. So, actually I need to go back in order to show it. There we go. So I'm calling the join method, and I'm just going to pass the list that we have, the names list here. And because this is the end of file, I'm going to break out of the while loop, right? Because this is basically the end. We're done. We just write the output and we are done. So that's actually everything. Let's now just test how this works. We're going to have Python adieu.py. Okay, Benchu, Minchu. And now I'll click Control D in order to end the file. So I see adieu to Benchu and Minchu. Now there is this annoying thing where, as you can see, our output is printed on the same line as the name, which is a little bit annoying. So we could either just add a new line here in front or just add another print on top. It doesn't matter that much, but let's test again. Benchu, Minchu, Ivanchu. And now I'll press Control D. And as you can see, this time we got moved to the next line and we see adieu to Benchu, Minchu, comma, and Ivanchu, which is precisely what we expected. Okay, let's run check 50. Alright, as we can see, all the tests are green, which means that our code was executed successfully. That was everything for this tutorial. I hope you found it interesting and helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.